Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, a weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. Not much else to say that hasn't been said in the last week. Whether you've heard it in one video or the other, I would have pretty much the same thing to say this time. So what do you say we thank our patrons, get into Q&A, and this week's going to be a very different kind of Q&A. I'm still going to be doing the same questions, the same answers, but if you hear a certain background noise, we might be accompanied by a little bit of gameplay in this Q&A. So before we get started with that, I would like to thank my patrons. Their names are not over here, which is where I think they are before I look at the camera and realize I'm wrong, and they're actually here. And they have been supporting the stream even through these hard times. We've got plenty of people on that list. And as a reminder, if you're going through rough times right now, do not feel bad removing yourself from that list. It's completely understandable. Just want to make sure that that's abundantly clear. If you are there, though, your name is now scrolled through it, and thank you for your support. We also have our patrons of Darkness, Khuja, Jenova, and Kurenai Oni, both of which have gone above and beyond for support since we brought the Patreon back sometime last year. So thank you to them. Appreciate you all. Appreciate patrons of Darkness, patrons, and all of you tuning in. But this week, like I said, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to answer the Q&A while playing Animal Crossing. Because, well, Daddy ain't going to pay off these debts by answering questions for 45 minutes. Daddy pays off the debts while answering questions while playing for 45 minutes. So let's get started. Alright, so first question. I'm going to have to play with a little bit of a delay so I can properly read the question without talking over here where the question would be if I otherwise did it. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey Hap, hope you're hanging in there with COVID-19 and all. We talked briefly on Twitch, but you were in the middle of E8 Savage. I figured this would be a better place to ask. While playing Final Fantasy XIV since Heavensward came out and only recently decided to do anything beyond normal mode. Cinderdrift was my first EX fight, and through reading the balance, practicing on dummies, I managed to get some parse on it for flogs in the single digit to teens range. Yikes. Hey, you said it, not me. You got them to the 30s or 50s, which is pretty good. On PS4, I can't track every run, so what's the next step to going from green to blue to purple? On Twitch, you mentioned raid-wide timing, but I'm running random parties. You know what? That's the thing, though. You're trying to care a lot about parses in Party Finder, and yeah, our DPS realistically is it's kind of a group effort. Don't get me wrong, you absolutely need to contribute on an individual level a personal DPS of a certain amount. You want to be using raid DPS tools at smart times, times when you won't lose uptime on them, for example. For example, you don't want to use your 2-minute cooldown and then the boss jumps away or dies or something like that, and then you can't do any GCDs, because by doing that, you're not really getting any benefit out of it, and that's going to hurt both your personal and your raid DPS by the end of everything. So things like that. But when it comes to like EXs in the Party Finder, Ruby Weapon in particular is not really great for testing that. Party Finder isn't in general. One thing you might want to actually look to do, our DPS determines your ranking. The thing that you're looking at, where you're saying your teens, your 30, that you got up to the 30s and 50s, you might want to actually start looking at your PDPS and seeing if you can compare that to other people. Because at the very least, if you can be getting your personal DPS to a somewhat adequate number compared to the other people who are uploading them, then that's at least a step in the right direction. It's not all the way there, but when you start moving into Savage, that's where things start to really improve. But the fact that you're on a track for improving, and that's actually a focus of yours, already puts you actually leagues ahead of a lot of other people who are in the Party Finder, because it's pretty common that most people just want to clear in the Party Finder, and I don't think that's the wrong mentality, but there's a difference between going for the clear and having a terrible personal performance. Those are not mutually exclusive to one another. So the fact that you even care is already a step above most others, and I think that you should be happy that you're making progress and just keep pushing, because clearly whatever you're doing is getting you to the next step. You might not be sure 100%, but I wouldn't worry that much about it until you get into Savage. And then even with Savage, you have to consider where you are item level wise compared to other people. There's all these factors that make it kind of difficult to even give proper advice, because there's so many variables that it's not just a universal play better and the number will be better. There is 100% a point where your gear will come into play, and of course playing with random people will always be a factor. So I'm just glad that you're even thinking about this and trying to improve, because that will eventually put you on a higher plane than the players around you who just kind of don't care. All right, next question. For anyone who's wondering after that first question what I'm even doing, I'm trying to make money off of butterflies and orchid mantises and stuff. I got debts to pay. What can I say? And fishing's kind of hard because I'm playing with a bit of a delay to read these questions. So hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Hap, how you doing? I was watching your How Rating Has Evolved. Man, I just saw that video. It did way better than I realized it did. It makes me want to make more videos like that. Maybe some like retrospects on certain jobs and how they've evolved over the years might actually be another topic. But you love the perspective of someone who's played the game for a high level for as long as you have, been around for years, and only really did the story and roulette, so things like that are cool to see. As you're thinking about other videos to make more videos about historic perspective. There you go. I'm glad we're in agreement. Similarly, a lot of us have had extra time on our hands. What are some good time sucks? Sinks. Time sinks are normally what we call them, not time sucks, but I know where you're going with it. That people can spend on otherwise if they haven't already. Blue Mage, old relic weapons, getting everything to 80. I mean, yeah, there's a difference between wanting to spend more time playing a game because you want to enjoy those things versus there just being things to do. You've just named things to do. You can work on the Relic, Anima, Eureka, try to work your way towards Baldacian Arsenal. Plenty of servers still have Discords that run BA, at least on the weekends, whether they be farm parties or clear parties or learning parties. There's all sorts of those. Or just collecting a variety of relics, going back and collecting old glam gear. Blue Mage, you know me, I like to do some solos on my Paladin. If you want to go back and even just solo some of the easier stuff way back when, if you didn't do those fights, you just want to see what it's like. Leveling other jobs, trying out crafting, trying out gathering. Diadem is out now. Ocean fishing is out now. There's so many options of things to play in 14. Even if a lot of them don't necessarily have a lot of depth, the sheer variety can be quite overwhelming to new players. So look down your list of things, like look down your list of features that you maybe have unlocked and haven't done, or haven't unlocked, and just go through that. Even give Palace of the Dead and Heaven on High solos a try. Wouldn't be a bad idea either. I mean, it's more stuff to do, it's more content, and sometimes solo challenges, even in an MMO, can be a lot of fun. So you've started nailing it, and I think you're down the right path, and you'll find all that stuff pretty easily. Alright, let's see. Scroll down to the next question here. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps. Flynn Lawlette here. I thought it just said Lawlette for a second. Anyway, I was a big fan of you when you, Morag, and Slack did our count-up cast for 15. So my question to you is, have you ever thought about doing a show like this for when you and Sly don't have a show for a weekly? Read more, but yeah, for State of the Realm. Well, let me click and make sure that that's all there is. Yeah. Just as State of the Realm. No, not for State of the Realm. We considered very briefly doing something like that for Kingdom Hearts. I've lost a lot of enthusiasm for Kingdom Hearts. King of the Hearts. Is that King of the Hill? Is that Hank Hill? God damn it, Donald. Anyway. No, it just hasn't really been a thing. We've considered both, like, just playing the game, just playing 14 together, and just, like, talking to our chats, or talking to the chat, like, there. But we also have really decided on trying not to force shows. Like, we actually have a good amount of shows lined up. We have a crafting and gathering show lined up. We actually have an entire themed month that we're planning for when things slow down significantly. Like, so if we have a 3 or 4 week period where we're not sure, we have an idea. We're going to slot right in there, and hopefully it'll turn out really good. So we're just trying to come up with ideas that are really content for people. This is kind of the thing that maybe Sly and I would do separately from State of the Realm if we didn't have anything going on. Maybe like Casual of the Realm or something like that, where it really doesn't have any news or impact, but just two guys hanging out, which is kind of the vibe we go for with State of the Realm anyway. So that's a consideration, but no, not anything along these exact ideas. Hasn't really come up as an idea for State of the Realm. Alright, so just so you know, I took a skip for a spoiler question, so there's been a little bit of a lapse in time, but otherwise should be good. Let's start the next one. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Senor Haps, you doing alright? I'm doing as alright as I can. Just chilling in Animal Crossing right now. 2 quickies. Ooh, just kidding. Do you have any thoughts on how the devs can make the leveling process for secondary classes more enjoyable? So I don't actually dislike leveling secondary classes that much, but I am not someone who, I guess, kind of does things to ad nauseum. Like, I never did Palace of the Dead from like 15 to 60. I've never suffered through that. Squadrons from 20 to 55 are a great option, but there's kind of a learning barrier there because a lot of players, A, don't know about Squadrons, and B, when you first start out with Squadrons, they're not that fantastic. It's really after you've leveled the job with them. They've unlocked some of the bonus damage that they can get, so you can burn through the dungeons a lot faster. It's really once you get to that Squadrons pick up as a leveling process over Palace of the Dead for that specific level range, since you have to do it. You have to be at least 20 so you can do Wobbutalia. But I don't know. I feel like maybe streamlining the old Beast Tribe quests to have a wider level range. They've shown no propensity to do that. Adding Fate Stones, like we have in Shadowbringers, to the old Fates, I think it's a lot of like the quality of life we've seen every expansion to the newer features. I think extending those back to the older features is really the big answer to this question. We don't need things like more hunting locks. We don't need more guild hests. We need more things like the stuff we use to level at the higher levels. Hey, Paul's online. But we need those at the lower levels, if that makes sense. But also bear in mind, there's a ton of items with bonus EXP, preferred worlds. If you make a new character on a preferred world, then leveling those secondaries while you have that bonus, whew. But if not the case, then obviously it doesn't work out quite the same. How many butterflies do I have? Oh, I'm full on inventory. I should go sell this anyway. As for the second question, if a raid tier with the complexity of Gordius, I'll comment on that in a second. Repeated release, meaning mechanics and a DPS check equivalent to its fights, would it still be as much of a nightmare, or would we have to brush it off? So the complexity of Gordius is actually not that high, other than a few things. A lot of the difficulty of Gordius comes not with its complexity, but strictly with its gear check. People can't really even pass the Shiva DPS check. People are struggling with that. The E7 Savage ad phase. E5 Savage's overall DPS check. Now, I think the first two fights would actually not function that differently. There really wasn't a gear check on those all that much. So I think those would actually function relatively similarly. They're not really any more complex in regards to encounters. They're very different types of encounters, especially to Ramu and E6. I think that would be fine. It's really 3 and 4. 4 would be unpuggable, almost definitely. I can't say entirely like it could never happen, but it would certainly be in every way a worse situation than what we have for our 3rd and 4th encounter now, especially with 3, because 3 was a static killer. But the overall complexity is not really as much a concern as just the sheer number game that has to be played. You literally cannot have anyone playing substandard on that. A single person and it ruins it all. And we're seeing that kind of with Shiva. So with the low success rate of Shiva in the Party Finder, it kind of gives you an idea, because that's the closest comparison we've had in a lot of years in regards to Party Finder content. So it would be a nightmare just because of the numbers game, not because of the mechanics. I feel like with all the time that's passed, the mechanics, if they came out nowadays, wouldn't be as janky. Some of the old Gordius mechanics actually just barely worked. Like, they were just difficult. They weren't difficult because they were hard to understand or do. They were difficult because the responsiveness of the game in those mechanics was not very good, especially with A3 and in some places with A4. So that is really a big thing to bear in mind when it comes to comparing that. But it would just be a nightmare because of the numbers game. That alone would... Butterfly, I can't do this while I'm doing the Q&A. That would be the problem. So if that's all, then let's move on to the next question. All right, we got a shorter one here. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps, you doing all right? I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. Given how many people are just getting into Savage and Extreme content, have you thought about making a guide for basic stuff in the Party Finder? Like what people mean by clear group, what enrages, what cards, enter cards are, what max melee means, and so forth. Man, if you go into the Party Finder, you don't know what max melee means. Like, the other stuff I sort of get, but like cardinal and intercardinal, a lot of these are terms that aren't even like specific to our game. I feel like if you don't know what a cardinal direction is, you don't know what an intercardinal direction is, that's not necessarily something I can help you with. But in regards to the question of overall Party Finder lingo, there are a couple of videos out there like that, but I have considered that as of late. Just releasing stuff, especially for less for things like what you're describing and more for when people describe really old mechanics. They use those old mechanics to describe current mechanics. It doesn't really make sense to anyone who's new when somebody, and I'm not talking about Ruby Weapon here, but a lot of people call point blank AoEs chariots. That's it. It's because it's for, and honestly, I'm glad Ruby Weapon has them, because that now translates a little bit more into the current era. And a lot of people who played way back when, they call donut AoEs dynamos. And if there's ever a combination, they call them chariot dynamo. They just combine the two names that describe what, if it's one mechanic or the other, that's how you identify it. E7 has point blank and donut. people call it the same thing, Chariot Dynamo. So stuff like that. That's just like the most common example I can think of right now. But not things like what Enrage is. I feel like that is, it's not, you're not technically wrong in that players who are new to MMOs wouldn't understand that. But I feel like things like Clear Group, a lot of the times people just kind of don't care. If you watch the most recent State of the Realm, we talk about the Party Finder a lot now. We talk about the raids here. We talk about how it does in the Party Finder in particular. And there's plenty of times where it'll be like, we're using this strat, we're using all these strats, and then you'll zone in and someone will go, okay, what strats are we using? It's like a lot of, ooh, an Orchid Mantis. A lot of people kind of just, not going to lie, they kind of just don't care or don't read because they don't care. Or they just don't care and they don't, I don't know. So it's not a bad idea, but it's not exactly for the things that you're saying. I think it'd be more like 14 specific lingo that I would want to focus on for that kind of video. Hello, Happy. This one didn't have a hashtag, but sometimes I still look for questions that don't have hashtags. I know it's can't always have the hashtag. I got 2 questions for you today. One is a 14 question, the other is not. Okay, looks like the first one is, because I see the word diadem. Ooh, a present. So, ever since the diadem released with Ishgard, I've been having place grinding and love having the activity in the chat. Yeah, diadem has been really good for that. If I could just shoot this thing, it'd be great. But my only problem is that the market board, since is undercutting is insane. Yeah, welcome to too much supply and not enough demand, because that's exactly what's causing that right there. I'm curious what the point of undercutting so much the stuff might sell quicker, but you end up having to work harder. So a lot of the time, it's just a basic supply and demand chain. When there's too much supply and there's not enough demand, people have to kind of get really competitive and low at their prices to even sell the thing off to make anything at all. Now, of course, it leads to a similar frustration to what you're experiencing, where just like, oh my god, if everyone just sold it at the same price, it would sell anyway, we'd all make the money, but then there'd be new stuff entering the market board that would take priority because it's newer versus the older stuff that might be priced similarly. So it creates a little bit of a problem. The people who come later need to get their stuff higher up on the list. And there is a way to relist for the same price and accomplish that. But most people just go, oh, I'll go one below. And then the next person does it. And the next person does it. And the next person does it. So it is just a basic supply and demand chain. There's too much supply, not enough demand. Most people who can buy that stuff are making those items are supplying it themselves, and the people who aren't, they only need to buy so much of it. They don't need as much as what's being supplied there. Also, too, been playing a lot of Fire Emblem Three Houses, having a blast. I'm curious, have you played it? No, I never got into Fire Emblem. I like to tell people I have what I call an anime game budget for the year. I am not like a big anime fan, and so a lot of anime games, a lot of the stuff comes off as a little bit too cliche, a little bit too, I don't know how, it's just too anime. It's too much. So like Persona I can do, and then I have like a little bit more anime budget in my like soul before I just can't deal with the cliches and anything anymore, or even just like just the overall vibe that I get from the game. Fire Emblem eats that up and spits it out like within minutes. I really like the actual gameplay. I'm a big fan of the systems like having the ability to permanently lose characters, the branching stories, the very choice-oriented, I guess, execution of your overall game. I like all those factors, but there's just something about it that when I like look at it and I play it, I go, I don't think I could play this game all the way through. I've had other games with like similar vibes that I get from them, and then I'm like, even if I'm enjoying them, I just like can't. There's some games I'll force myself through. I forced myself through Xenoblade Chronicles 2, even though I got that same vibe. And I can tell you right now, I would like Fire Emblem Three Houses way better than the base version of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Torna notwithstanding. But I just can't bring myself to do it. But I acknowledge that it is a game that I would fully enjoy, despite that just vibe, just too much of it. I just can't do it. All right, we got another double questioner, and as I read that, oh no, there's an Orchid Mantis. I don't want to do that. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hashtag 2 questions. Hey, Happy, how you doing? I'm doing all right. I'm trying to make these bells. I'm trying to be a billionaire right now. As you can see, this little Orchid Mantis, or 2,400 bells right here. He's going to be my friend. Thank you very much. First time asking, but I've been watching your videos for a while and love your content. Thank you. I have 2 hopefully not stupid questions. I doubt they're stupid. If you think that, they probably aren't. That's what I'll say. You can pick one or both. We'll see. Question 1, I'm curious about speed kills optimization. Would it be best in theory to bring the jobs that do the most RDPS? So the answer is yes, but it's a little bit deeper than that. So you don't just want what looks individually to be the highest RDPS. You also want to consider how all those jobs would function in the most optimized scenario, the most optimized buff timings. RDPS is... multiplicative is not the right word. RDPS is a stacking effort. If everyone is working to improve it, then everyone's RDPS tends to go up because everyone's got great timings for their buffs. They've got the best burst windows. They're lining things up. They understand the fight will only last so long, so they can, instead of just popping raid buffs when they come out, you can organize them to be the most beneficial, to come during the best uptime for everybody, and all sorts of things like that. So while I won't say the answer is certainly yes, but it's just a level deeper than that. And 2, why are the speed stats not useful for more jobs? From what I understand, these stats are useful for jobs that have a window of time they need to fit more GCDs, like Black Mage or Warrior. But why are they not useful for Summoner's Dreadworm Trance, or say Dark Knight's Delirium? Well, so it's about weight. So what you're referring to is what's called stat weight, where something can be worth something, but is it worth as much as something else? You're putting it on a scale against the other stats. So when it's worth it, it means that the choice to, get that amount of skill speed or that amount of spell speed is superior to just stacking like crit and direct hit. It is by and far a better choice for the overall for the player. Whereas in a situation like what you've just said with like Dreadworm Trance, it's not really accomplishing anything because the amount you need to get that much benefit out of it doesn't outweigh the stat gain from everything else that you're actually doing. So that's generally what goes behind with stat weights. We used to have a much more publicly defined number for these weights, and there still is a number over on the Balanced Discord. They still do put numerical values to these things, where it'd be like, 1 point of determination is like 0.197 of a main stat, for example. A main stat is 1, and 5.6 of these is equal to 1 main stat. That used to be much more like a public point of discussion, and it's not anymore. People just kind of take the simulated results that come out of the balance and out of the people who run the numbers and apply them to their actual gear, or they take their overall job design and just apply what would be common knowledge after years of experience. So those are really the 2 factors that play the most into it, but it's about the weight. Now, every individual job I couldn't explain to you, even the one that you've just named I couldn't explain to you, but hopefully that gives at least some clarity as to why it would work out that way. Alright, Mr. Truth. I have nothing but the truth. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps, how you doing? I'm catching some bugs and paying off debt. What else could you ask for? That's life, right? Anyway, hey, Abs, how you doing? First time asking, I've got a static-related question. I'm in a static of friends that meets once a week, and it's hard to progress this tier because our time and our raid night is over. We have a day or two to reset, before reset, to finish weeklies if we don't accomplish that. Not to mention, some of the members are much slower learners than others. Let me make sure that I don't lose that, and I almost did. My question is, what do you consider the breaking point for a static with friends? I want to progress further into tier, but the slow progress of our team is tough to get by. I don't want to make an alt, nor do I want to break the static. It's unfortunate you don't want to make an alt, because that actually would have been my first suggestion. That's a great way to... That's how a lot of people actually function. People who want to have a casual static with friends versus a more hardcore static. That is actually one of the first solutions people go for. If not, I mean, sometimes you just got to be honest about your interests, man. I mean, there are ways you can put it, ways you can say it that don't make it sound like... the big thing is you don't want to make it sound like you don't like playing with them. You really want to make it sound like you just want... because you've been raiding with them, you have this, itch for, more progress that isn't being met. And then you explain these same difficulties where because of the time of the week, it's nobody's fault kind of thing. I just really want this. And I'll be honest to you, sometimes when those kind of groups come together and they function the same way, sometimes, it leads to the group breaking. It's inevitable. Even if people are completely understanding, it's just sometimes the one person falling apart, a group doesn't want to go through a traditional recruitment process because it's a casual group of friends. I would say another possible solution, if it's a casual group that's progressing really slowly, honestly, the group probably doesn't care that much about loot. in my opinion, the group shouldn't care that much about actually getting a 2-chest clear. So you might want to propose the idea of you trying to get the clear the rest of the week and then still raiding with them and trying to work with them to get the clear. The question then becomes, after clearing those fights, how much tolerance do you have for a group that is not progressing super fast? And then it really becomes how good of friends you are with these people. But that you might want to just suggest that if they're progressing so slowly, then a 1 chest shouldn't matter. Losing just 1 piece of loot when you're not killing barely anything in a given week, maybe that's the solution. I would try that suggestion, but you don't just want to sit there and sit in your own personal suffering, because you're going to eventually loathe them for kind of, maybe in your mind, holding you back, but more so just you have a want that's unmet, and that can lead to a lot of distraction and poor performance in the raid that you're actually running with your friends. And then maybe it's not as fun for you, and then you want to leave and you just hit a tipping point. So try that. Try suggesting, only going for the 1 chest, or like you want to progress elsewise and then still raid with them, but just, for a 1 chest, and see how that goes. That might be your best bet. All right, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, Haps, long-time watcher, second time asker. Hope you're having a great day, dude. Since I started recording this, I've seen way more orchid mantises. I don't know. Since we started, so it's been doing good. I was actually like to be doing fishing, but with the delay, I can't do that. It's just too risky. Let's see. Hope you're having a great day. So I'm jumping back into Final Fantasy 14. I jumped off at the start of Stormblood and just started playing a week ago. I'm having a hard time finding information that is current in the form of guides. Things like, how does the materia system work, job guides, what should I be doing at level cap, etc. The question is, there's like WoW-head for 14? No, but it'd be really great if there was. There was an attempt at that. I don't think it panned out entirely. Just 14's is very segregated with all of its content. A lot of it comes down to whether it be personalities that provide individual videos or just YouTube channels that are all separate for different topics. There's just no grand consolidation of all of that stuff, unfortunately. There's so many YouTubers I could recommend. A lot of the times you just literally have to search for exactly the thing and then watch a YouTube video or read a text guide. That's how the majority of people I know get through it all. I have videos on some of that stuff. I have how does the materia system work. I don't have job guides. For job guides, you'd want to use a Discord that's called The Balance. Maybe heard me mention it a few times on this show, and it's literally like a theory crafting style Discord with all sorts of job information, rotations, guides. I'd stay out of the discussion boards; those can get a little bit hairy. But other than that, that's a great resource for that. And what to be doing at level cap? Honestly, if you've played before, it's kind of the same at every level cap, just with a new skin. As some people like to say that that's a major detriment to 14, but it means that once you kind of get used to that idea, leaving and coming back is always very simple. Catch up to your story quest, look for the new dungeons and raids you haven't unlocked, 8-man raids on even-numbered patches, 24-man raids on odd-numbered patches. It's just, you get into such a rhythm that it actually is easier than you might think to pull yourself back into the game. So, and of course, patiently waiting for the Versus series. Listen, we're working on it. Animal Crossing's taking a little bit of priority because I have an addictive personality. I'll be honest with that one. But it is what it is, kind of. I wish we had something like a WoW head. I wish with that full commitment, I will pick that hat back up. Don't worry. I wish we just had a better congregation of that information, but we don't, and so there's not much we can really do on that front outside of doing it ourselves, which nobody does, so that's why we don't have one in the first place. So hopefully some of those resources I've named will help you out. I'm sure people will mention it in the comment section as well, and that's all I got for you. Wish it was better. Sorry. Oh, this one was edited. I don't know when, but it was edited. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hello there, Senor Contento. I have a question and thought piece regarding sites. We got a lot of static-related questions this week. I've been in and out of 14 since 2.4, going back and forth between it and WoW. Finally decided to settle solely on 14 since the end of Stormblood. The biggest contrast with the raiding community of these two games is the idea of team commitment. Joining a guild in WoW for raiding felt like a small commitment, whereas my experience with statics at 14 is people coming and going. It's just normal. So many people just move on when a better or different opportunity presents themselves, and the idea of camaraderie has just not been there. I was thinking maybe it had to do with how the raids themselves are operated. There's nothing in the game, to my knowledge, to incentivize the group's positive behavior. For example, our static progressing through T was practically a turnstile for the second tank roll. So we'd catch a new tank for the current prog who had never done it before. A week later, they'd peace out like it was nothing and further progress group. It's just normal behavior. Yeah, you know, I end up with almost a new static every major patch because, like, people will come together for that very, very short window of high commitment, and then people just kind of have lives. It's weird. It's not so much that people who play WoW don't have commitments outside of WoW. It's not that. But something about the average mindset of Final Fantasy XIV players, there's a lot more, you know, I have these really important things in my life that are absolutely a priority to me over this game. Or I don't want to do this week in and week out. You know, there's other games coming out. There's more freedom, I suppose, maybe in Final Fantasy XIV system to come and go. And it's something a lot of people, myself included, you know, do when it comes to playing Final Fantasy XIV. We don't want to play it 8 to 10 hours a day, every day. It's not that it's not good, but it's just not meant to be that kind of game outside of like really short windows of commitment for a lot of us. So because of that, yeah, a lot of raiders are kind of used to either static hopping or replacing people. And it can be an absolute bother. You know, I don't want to join a different static every raid tier. I don't want to have to go searching for that. Sometimes it gives me the opportunity to play with brand new faces and meet new people, and that's wonderful. And then sometimes I raid with them again, and I can think back to that experience, and I'll have a frame of reference. But you can have that without needing a new static every couple of months. But that's just kind of how it is with Final Fantasy XIV, and you hit the nail on the head with that one. Outside of very, very tight-knit communities and groups, which do exist. A lot of people I know who are hardcore raiders who don't raid together end up all in the same circle of friends because they all have raided at some point, if not with each other, with just in general, and this just kind of ends up being like a little micro community of people who do the same thing but don't necessarily do it together. So that might be what your eventual route is with Final Fantasy XIV. You don't find necessarily a guild that's, you know, all about logging in. You find like Discord groups that are full of people that you would consider friends or acquaintances, or just daily communications that you have, and that maybe some of them are pugging and some of them are, you know, have statics but whatnot, and that's the closest you'll get to that guild-like feeling, in my opinion. But for your static, yeah, that round table thing is perfectly normal, unfortunately, and I hope it doesn't discourage you too much, because the Epic of Alexander, while, you know, people are kind of 50-50 who have beaten it about how they feel about it, it's certainly a good experience to get, and it'll make you thirsty for more hardcore content in the future. And I think you'll get more enjoyment out of that content in the future if you can really sink your teeth in and make some serious progging tea. Alright, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Mr. Happy, what makes a good Beast Tribe? You often harp on the A Realm Reborn Beast Tribe quality, so what do you want to see in those quests? Have subsequent expansions created the perfect Beast Tribes? Is there still room for improvement? So I'll say that the A Realm Reborn Beast Tribes, prior to the Ixal, suffered from kind of a meaningful storytelling standpoint. The Kobolds and the Sahagin certainly were better than the Amalja and the Sylphs. The Amalja and the Sylphs also suffered from incredibly boring and not convenient at all daily quests. They've updated them a little bit since then. They're a lot better now, but they just weren't good daily quests, and the story payoffs for those two in particular weren't very good. The Sahagins and the Kobolds, much better in that regard, but they've gotten a lot better about making those Beast Tribe quests feel... There's a little bit more weight and impact on how they actually, how those societies actually function, the Beast Tribe societies that we're helping. And they've just gotten so much better at writing and designing quests. The quests are either so easy you barely need to think about them now, or they're so convenient that you don't really... when you're doing them every day. You don't necessarily want them to take a lot of your time. And they've gotten better about kind of respecting that process as expansions have gone on. There's less annoying areas. Obviously, we have flying, which makes them... A Realm Reborn not having flying is a big thing, because those zones are just not fun to traverse on the ground, or at least they weren't when they first came out. But for a new player, honestly, even the Realm Reborn Beast Tribes won't be that bad nowadays. It's a lot of leftover gripes that don't really apply anymore with the speed boosts and the consolidations they've made, the increased level cap. It's just a lot of leftover, I guess, the angst towards those quests that doesn't really apply anymore. But they've gotten a lot better. I think that even shows with the way that the old Beast Tribes are designed post some changes that they've made over the expansions, and I've got a present. But that hopefully is a good enough answer to the question. I didn't really answer it, I feel, but you got kind of an idea of where my distaste for those come from. Now let's open this present, see what we get, and then we got another question. Book stands. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Howdy. Hello. With Blue Mage getting some time in Savage, loved it. Had a great time with it. With the level cap increase to 60 for 5.x, I'm still hoping it goes up to 70 before the end of 5.x, because they said they had like 129, 149, I think it was 129 spells in total made, and we have 80 right now. Even if they were to do another level increase to 70, I don't think they'd add 49 more spells. So that means they already have all the spells picked out up to level 80 for Blue Mage. So I hope we get level 70 before the end of the expansion. We get to Stormblood content like Ultimate and whatnot. So what are your thoughts on possibly seeing Blue Mage, other limited jobs, in Ultimate? You say in 6.0 again, I'm hoping for 5.x. What reward would you like to see for beating an Ultimate with Blue, since Perfect Blue is already taken? I think if they do allow Blue Mage to do an Ultimate, it's still entirely up in the air. I think they need to make Ultimate weapons. I think at that point you have to do it. You can't do what you did with like Savage, where you're like, well, here's a title and a mount for beating them all. Yeah, that's you should probably do that too. But for Ultimate, you probably need to push it an extra step and at least include like a Blue Mage totem. Well, I mean, just make the achievement give a Blue Mage weapon, because obviously you don't need to buy a Blue Mage weapon. They shouldn't make it purchasable with the totems that you can earn with the other jobs. So yeah, make it, I'd assume, an actual ultimate weapon for any of the ultimates that they do, not just beating them all. And yeah, they have to. There's no other way around it. But I do hope that they do that. There is a bit of a problem with Uwu. Ukab should entirely be possible with, if you were to just take their level 60 kits and apply them to level 70. Those should theoretically be possible. Uwu would not be, unless they add a personal limit break style for like based on their stance, or something that can emulate, you know, all of the LBs that are possible. Then you can't really do Uwu. You can use Diamondback as a tank, as like a defensive cooldown, like a tank LB3. But you don't have a great solution for all the other LB3s. Final Sting is not going to be the answer to get past, you know, La Habrea and Uwu. You know what I'm saying? So they need to add that, and they might. I mean, with the propensity they've shown to add more group-oriented mechanics for them, I wouldn't at all be surprised if they go down that road. But they'll have to go down that road, or it literally won't be possible. And yeah, it looks like you say down here, given their stance on unsyncing ultimates as it is. Yeah, I mean, it has to. That's why I'm saying the rewards have to all be segregated into very Blue Mage specific categories. In my opinion, you shouldn't even be allowed to earn a totem from beating it with all Blue Mage. It should literally be the achievement and nothing else. But I don't know if they have a system in place to like track that and like stop the drops properly. But you could also argue, if you're capable of doing all the mechanics in an ultimate, even if you can cheese some with Diamondback, that it's probably okay to give them a totem at the same time. So, but I really hope they allow it. I'm already looking forward to Omega. I still hope they allow Palace of the Dead and Heaven on High solos at some point with it. Completely separate achievements, completely separate everything. Just make sure it doesn't overlap with the people who have already worked hard to get stuff like Necromancer and whatnot. And Lone Warrior, I think, is the one for Heaven on High. But just give Blue Mage its own category, and I hope it works out. All right, next one, hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. I don't, how far am I even into this recording? I still got a few questions left. I posted a question already, and it seems like it isn't popping up, so I apologize. This is a double post. If I see the other one, I'll just ignore it. Out of the Realm Reborn Primals that have been remade to Eden, which do you prefer, the Eden version or the Realm Reborn counterparts? You know, that's tough. I feel like Eden, it's almost not fair, because Eden's designs have taken years of them learning about the community, about the way we absorb raid fights, about the designing the raid fights. And while I understand that the people who made the individual Eden fights, it's 4 different developers who have not made Savage encounters before, they did a really good job. And I feel like they did learn from previous generations of bosses that have been developed in Final Fantasy XIV. So it's almost universally the Eden ones over the old ones for me. Not that I didn't like the old ones, but there's so many cooler and more interesting things that they've done, except Leviathan. Leviathan, I think I actually prefer the original. I am not a fan of the Eden Leviathan. You know what? That's it. The other 5, cool. It's kind of hard to judge Garuda and Ifrit because of the way the fight works, but I'm a big fan of Raktapaxa, so. But Leviathan, I'm going to go with the original Leviathan over the new one. And it's just because, maybe it's just recency bias against not liking the most recent Leviathan. But that's still my answer. That's still an answer. So that's the only one. The other 5, Eden, Leviathan, the old one. All right, so I actually read through a few things, because obviously with it being like 47 minutes, and there were some that were kind of like repeats. There's some people asking how much toilet paper I bought, and we already had a bunch of toilet paper before everything, went crazy. So none. I haven't bought any toilet paper since everything started happening. Had a few questions that I actually saw other people answer in comments that were accurate. There was one that was asking if I've ever played with a controller before. And my entire Let's Play Healer Happy series was with controller. That was part of the reason I did that, was because I had never played controller before. So I have. There's a whole lot of documentation of me playing with controller. And, still preferring keyboard and mouse personally, at least from a healer perspective. But so I'm going to land on just this last question right here, since we're already so far into the video, and I didn't really have some answers, plus some other people going out of their way to answer questions in the comment section that were correct. So this is going to be the last question, and then the spoiler section will play. I think there's only one question in there, maybe 2. I can't remember. I already forgot. So yeah, hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hey Haps, how's it going? It's going all right. I've made a good amount of money. I gotta go see how much money I made by the end of this video. We gotta catch at least one more high selling bug before the video ends. Are the Stone Sky Sea dummies more strict depending on the job you're using? Yes, they are. Let me read the rest though. I've been practicing with some different jobs for the Fear dummy, and I'm confused by the results. I can beat it just fine on Ninja 478, Machinist 481, Dancer 481, and Summoner 478, but for some reason have a very tough time on Black Mage 478. I don't think I'm a significantly worse Black Mage than I am on any of those other jobs. I can't think of a reason why that would be. I looked for a balance for rotation device, even after implementing it, I'm still having trouble. So to be very clear, yes, every individual job has a different requirement for Stone Sky Sea, because not every job can do the same DPS, even when played 100% optimally. Raid DPS, which we've talked about quite a bit on this show, is not only calculated on your personal performance. If you have bad teammates, your RD DPS suffers for your rankings on FF logs as well, because the buff that you're providing to them isn't providing enough increase to the overall raid DPS, because they're not doing as high a DPS with your buff. So yeah, that 100%, they are all different, and they all have, and sometimes it makes more sense. Sometimes it doesn't make any sense. I think I haven't done too much Stone Sky Sea. I only did Machinist and Dancer to beat the E8 Savage dummy. And I'm not going to lie, for me, it was no big deal. I didn't even really think about it. But for other people who have actually been looking at what the DPS requirements are, I've been hearing nonstop that Eden's verse has like the weirdest spread of damage required for the different jobs. Like, there are jobs that should absolutely have higher requirements that don't, and jobs that have really high requirements that can meet them but doesn't make sense compared to the other jobs that are in there. Now, I couldn't name them off the top of my head. I can only briefly remember, or vaguely remember, the conversation I had on my Twitch stream. But, yeah, I'm sure someone in the comment section will have something to say about that. But, yeah, they're all different for all different jobs. And your performance is, the difference in performance might be quite noticeable if you're barely scraping by the item level requirement. And when it comes to doing, like, the E8 Savage dummy with, like, I-478, because, most people would go into that with at least full I-480 with the pentamelds even. It was not too surprising to even see, like, critter direct hit variance be the cause for a wipe when you're playing that close to item level. But it's, every different Stone Sky Sea, every different one of those is always different in the way that the development team has programmed it. And I still haven't found that bug, and I'm coming up on the end of this. So I don't have any more particular of an answer, but hopefully that at least gives you an idea of why you're seeing the result that you're seeing. That's about the best I can offer. And I'm sure, again, there will be some comments in the comment section that will take care of the rest. And with that, actually, no, we got to let the spoiler question go, and then I'll be back. All right, I saw the word spoiler in this one, so this one's going to get edited. This is going to be weird, because there's going to be a jump back in time for some people while I'm playing Animal Crossing. But all the same, the butterflies I'm looking for aren't even showing up, and I've just got shells all over the place. But I saw the word spoiler, so we'll make this the beginning of the spoiler section for later, and that'll be good to go. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps. Hope you and yours are doing well. Doing as good as we can. Long-time viewer, first-time askers have this lovely bonus of a parasol in any style or color. Well, I'm colorblind, so you know what? Maybe you should pick the color. I don't think it would turn out very good if I did it. 5 bonus spoiler warning. My question is something I've been confused about for a while now. Who exactly are the 12 in Final Fantasy XIV? Oh, this might not even actually be spoiler. If I'm reading this now, it's because I didn't really consider it that much of a spoiler question, because this is kind of a really old topic at this point. With all the info we have about the convocation... Okay, no, it's still going to go in the spoiler section. I almost wondered if the 12 had something to do with the ancient rulers of Amarot. So there's a lot of theories circulating about the 12 right now. The convocation, as far as I remember off the top of my head, was 14 members. So, obviously, the 12 is more than 14. You do have to consider, however, that if Ellentill is counted in the 14, that would leave 13 of the other Ascians that would be part of the convocation. And the 12, while they are the 12, Nald and Thal are two different ones. I had a question, I think, recently that kind of dived into this, and I had to be reminded that Nald Thal was actually Nald and Thal. So, here's the thing. We don't have a definitive answer. So, the speculation is pretty much all we have to go on at this point. And it doesn't definitively point in any which direction. I'm hoping 5.3 and even like going on after that will dive more into that, because I'm sure that the Scions who are, pursuers of knowledge, especially Oreo and Jay, they have to want to know if any of what they believe, anything they were raised to know before they learned of this, thing that we've learned about with traveling to the First and learning all about the Amarodians and the Unsundered. If that had any impact on, our beliefs and what we consider normal, I suppose, back on the source. So no answer, but we'll revisit this in the future. And the last part, just as thoughts. So hopefully that is of adequate thoughts to you. Okay, and that is going to be a wrap for this episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hopefully you didn't mind a little bit of the Animal Crossing in the background. I've been streaming it. And listen, it's what I was going to be doing. It's what I wanted to be doing. So I figured doing a Q&A to something that is so low brain power shouldn't be a problem, but I'll, of course, be reading the comment section to see how people felt about me having a little bit of Animal Crossing in the background. I do want to see how many bells we end up having after catching a bunch of these and doing some final sales here. But if you have a question for Mondays with Mr. Happy, be sure to put it in the comment section of the video below this. Hopefully I was good enough to answer all the questions that I did answer. Hopefully they were good enough answers. If I didn't answer your question, hopefully it fell into one of those categories that I gave you before I actually answered that last question before the spoiler section. So let's see how many bells I'm sitting on by the end of this. My next debt tomorrow is 548,000 bells. And then we will wrap up the video. Thank you to our patrons again, whose names were scrolling at the beginning. Thank you to our patrons of Darkness, Khuja Cross on Jenova, and Kurenai Oni. I'm sure there were a few extra uhs in this video, as I quickly read through menus to make sure I knew where I was going. And we have 1.2. Let's put the full amount in. So that puts us at 1.32 approximately. There we go. 1.322. And my debt tomorrow is 548K, so I should be okay. But that's going to be a wrap. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share. And stay tuned for more videos this week. I'll see you next time. And until then, take care.